Hello and welcome everyone, we Weeb online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Did the Legendary Summoning Part 4. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Any luck? Naruto inquired as he entered the training grounds, before wincing in horror at a massive eruption of fire. Ouch, Sakura panted as she approached. Phew, finally got Big Ball Rasengan's fire down. Apart from that, not much. Several ideas but nothing concrete. Well, a mission was assigned to us by the Hokage. Why? Sakura inquired. We're supposed to train for a mission in a month, right? Naruto shook his head. It appears that the old man decided that a good test for fighting a Biju would be if we were assigned all missions involving other types of demons, in this case, Demon Country. I have to admit, it would be interesting if I could apply my suppression seal to a resisting target, Sakura mused. Alright, I'll go find Sasuke. What has he been up to? Playing with the more esoteric aspects of the lightning element. He said he got some interesting ideas after seeing the iron sand in the last battle. The air became greasy, as if you were standing near a power line. On exposed metal tips, static sparks hummed. Sasuke aimed the Raijin's hilt at a large hill, which already bore the scorch marks of heavy use as a technique practice backstop. He took a small coin in his offhand and dropped it, igniting the legendary weapon. A bang, a hiss, and molten metal splattered on the ground were heard. He exhaled a sigh. This should work, but he couldn't quite get it to work. It's a shame, because if he could match some of the great historical S-rank techniques. Forget the Chidori and all its variants. This was his response to Naruto's Rasen Shuriken. It was simply too difficult to shape the electric field so precisely. Yet, he was aware that the Raikage could use lightning as armor, so there was no theoretical opposition. Perhaps if he used metal supports to hold the necessary charges. Sakura ran up with details of their most recent mission, and he filed the prospect away for later. So, Demon Country sent for assistance, Sasuke's Sharingan said, having memorized the order's scroll. Yes, we need to go protect their high priestess, which means we need to figure out a bodyguard plan, Sakura said, flipping through her illusions library. Is 20 or so shapeshifted shadow clones a good start? Naruto asked, motioning for the team to leave. Let's see. I think I can get Kyuda to hide on her for a while, allowing him to summon me to her if she's in immediate danger. Do you have any details on the opposition? Shaking his head, Sasuke said. According to the details, all of their Jonin. There are only 3 of them in the country, are safe and sound, so that's good news. Sakura took command. The bad news is that Morio is a demon who was known for giving his subordinates upgrades similar to the curse seal. Extra chakra source, more potent, that sort of thing. Both boys looked at her. You have the most spiritual knowledge. What does demon mean in this context? She closed her eyes and rolled the name through her mind. Morio. Demon Country demons are all pure black chakra, which means they're unnatural and powerful. But for the most part their bodies are weak. They're not anchored to the world like we are, so their chakra doesn't regenerate without a connection to a more powerful source. Morio's name means, I think it's an echo of his true name. Most exotic chakra beings have common names related to their true names. So you believe he's a sufficient source of power. Yes, above a certain point, inhuman chakra becomes alive and self-regenerating. Just like human chakra. Naruto shook his head. So much for letting him exhaust himself. Is there anything else? Yes, Morio appears in legends, and, indeed, in some history books, he attempted to conquer the world with a terracotta army, but failed, and all the soldiers were sealed away with his mind in one shrine and his body in another. And if one of the shrines was attacked, it would have been the one with the mind, Naruto stated confidently. The others were staring at him. What? Minds are lighter than bodies. Imagine transporting a demon body hundreds of miles to the mind shrine. Alright, so we'll keep an eye out for enhanced soldiers. Sasuke brought them back on track. And some kind of terracotta army, which will be difficult to deal with because terracotta is an excellent insulator, which means the offensive elements don't work well against it. Would it be bad form for me to go chakra cloak? Innocently asked Naruto. Bad form? More like, never try it, Sakura replied. It's a country whose entire purpose is to contain demons. One of the 9 apparently breaking free would mean they'd abandon Morio in favor of you. Naruto grimaced. Right, forget that, he said abruptly to himself. Sakura, scout high and let us know if anything's coming in, then engage. I'll keep a clone perimeter out and go for whoever Sasuke isn't. Sasuke agreed with a nod. Do you have any infiltration countermeasures? You two and I will stop every few minutes to recharge Sage mode, which should give us enough warning. Sasuke then gave a small smile. It's convenient because we get a live fire test of our newest techniques. Too bad I didn't make much progress on my current one. Which current one is that? Sakura inquired, a grin on her face. Don't they all use current? Well done, Sakura. Sasuke sighed and rolled his eyes. Naruto, you're corrupting her. Aw, good. The ninja have arrived, Shin said, surveying Team 7. I have to say, I'm not impressed. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, we get that a lot, but Hidden and Kakuzu could correct you. Shin blinked, then took a closer look at him. You have some kind of taint to you. I'm not sure what kind, she said, looking around. And why not both of you? Kami blood runs deep in my family tree, Sakura shrugged. I'm not sure where Naruto and Sasuke get their traits from in the end, but they're both descended from the Sage of Six Paths. I see, Shin said, frowning. So, who is the strongest of you? Naruto was pointed out by Sakura and Sasuke. Skill is something we have a lot more of, Sasuke started. But you can't beat Naruto in terms of pure strength. Naruto frowned. That's cruel. All right, Shin said. That means he'll have to carry me. Wait a minute, what? Shin's eyes then flashed into a strange purple pattern. When they came to a halt, she looked Naruto in the eyes. You're going to perish. Naruto grimaced and shrugged. When, at the age of 93, with Konohamaru as the 6th. No, Morio's soldiers will kill you in the next few days. Sasuke smirked. How do you know that? I see the future, and sometimes I predict the death of someone close to me, which is why there are so few attendants here in the inner sanctum. They're afraid it will happen to them. How, I repeat. Shin reviewed the received future memory. She'd been stabbed in both lungs in it. So, as usual, she explained to one of those around her that they would die in this manner, changing the future so that they would protect her fatalistically and she would survive. Maybe it was a cruel and heartless thing to do, but she had no choice because only she could seal Morio. It was for everyone's benefit. Naruto laughed. Did you actually witness my death? No, but it's obvious you did because no one survives with punctured lungs. Actually, Naruto can regenerate. In fact, I believe Sasuke misjudged the length of the sharp spear when he first tested it. The Jinchuriki winced at the thought. Yeah, that stung a little, but don't worry, I'll be fine. Shin braced herself for another vision from the future. Nothing. That was either very good or very bad. She'd either die or live as a result of the method she'd just witnessed. Actually, Naruto, thinking about it, it might be a good idea if she had some kind of body armor, because she doesn't have a conditioned body like we do. If people are going to be throwing around ranged stuff. Naruto pondered for a moment. I'll lend her my Chunin vest, which will stop most bladed weapons, and I'll just replace it with a Sage Charge Up. As he removed it, both of his teammates looked at him with disdain. What possessed you to dye it orange in the first place? Naruto shook his head and handed it to Shin. It's my color scheme. My mother was the red-haired habanero. My father was the yellow flash. It's frankly unavoidable. I'm almost annoyed that my nickname contains no mention of orange. Demon Wind is sufficient. Remember, one of the Cage of Stone is known as Anoki the Fence Sitter. Despite herself, Shin winced. Is that a ruler's name? Yep, Old Man Hokage has a much cooler one, Naruto said as he lifted her onto his back. He's known as the God of Shinobi, or the Professor. Well, we'd better get going. Where's that shrine with the demon's body? Swampland. Naruto let her down again. That far. Sasuke, are you willing to provide us with transportation? Sasuke gave a nod. Better do it outside, though, because they dislike buildings. Oh, Shin exclaimed abruptly. We should get Taruho, my armsman. Then where is he? Sakura sighed. He showed us into the building, Naruto. Wow, this is incredible, Shin exclaimed, raising her arms above her head and feeling the rush of air rush over them. Naruto made certain he had a firm grip on her. After all, it wouldn't be good if Demon Country's priestess went missing. I apologize. Pardon? Naruto frowned, taking a closer look at her. Her entire demeanor had shifted in the previous few seconds. I apologized. When I told you you were going to die, that wasn't true. I was going to die. That's how my power of prediction works. My soul jumps back in time after I die, and then I tell someone else they're going to die. And that's how I survive. Naruto shook his head. Not a problem with me. But it might work better if you just said you'd had a vision of your own death and gave all the details you could so they could protect you better, right? She laughed. I guess I'm not going to get stabbed in a forest today. The gang of four maintained their presence at Shin's shrine. Boss? Shizuku inquired. How long will those ninjas stay in there? Kusuna shook his head. Gidai, let's force them out. Gidai activated his dark chakra enhancement and slammed all four hands on the ground, causing bombs to detonate and destroy the structure. They stood there watching the dust settle. Did we just murder them? Setsuna smirked. Who, again, did our recon Genin say was on the Konoha team? 3 of the 4 seasons, I believe, Kusuna offered. You cretins, they have 2 flight-capable ninja on that team. They may have left hours ago, but we'll have to go and stop them before they reach Lord Morio's body. Kyusuna glared at Setsuna for showing him up, then recharged Gidai's serpent and they all took off for Swamp Country. Hey, look, Sakura said, pointing out the terracotta army standing guard outside a structure below. Shin smirked. I believe that is the other shrine. They must have arrived before us. The 3 ninja exchanged curious looks. Naruto made the first decision. I need to get back on solid ground to charge up my sage mode. But once I do, I'll cut you a path. Got it, Sakura. Bring Shin with you, Sasuke said as he tapped the wing of his mount, which began to swerve sideways in the air towards a nearby hill. What? You're staying behind, Naruto? Shin inquired. Until all of those stone things are destroyed, Naruto said as he jumped down with the priestess. Those things leveled villages on the way here. I want them gone, he said, passing her to Sakura and starting to concentrate. Shin watched, fascinated, as Naruto's chakra morphed into something strange, and his eyes slit. Are you ready, guys? Naruto inquired. I'll start blowing them up and work my way left, while you go right. Naruto formed a trio of clones and built himself a Rasen Shuriken after the others nodded. The army of ghosts turned, sensing a new threat to their master in some way. Then some of them exploded. Sasuke's Sharingan caught fire. Naruto, you have complete destruction of them within 10 feet of the epicenter. 10 feet beyond that, their mission killed. But the stone armor appears to have stopped the wind chakra from doing enough damage, so I'd switch to close in. Got it, said one of the 3 clones, and 2 more formed to continue charging. I think 2 wind Rasengan each, and I'll do blades. The Narutos jumped right into the middle of the fight. Sasuke used a fairly standard invisibility illusion to conceal his presence. He couldn't risk the more esoteric Sharingan perception illusion because the constructs appeared to be more than just golems. Looking over at Sakura, he noticed she'd done the same thing and added a neat little mist trick on top of it, using chakra-saturated water droplets in the air to refract her position relative to the mist. Nice, how long can you keep that up? Sakura confidently nodded. Once the water's chakra has been charged, it requires very little power to keep it in place, and it can also be reconstituted into a quick cutting water dance. I approve. Okay, I'll go in 5. A massive detonation sounded from the valley below, where one of Naruto's clones had fired something that resembled the Atsugai technique used by Kakuzu. Another, which Sasuke assumed was the original because it had chakra blades coming from its elbows, knees, and fingers, launched into the 3rd form of the fox style, savaging a pair of opponents before leaping back into empty ground to pounce once more. Now, Naruto must have heard him, because a Rasen Shuriken screamed in from the 2 clones left on the ridge, flew over their heads, and annihilated a section of the shrine wall closest to them. This revealed a corridor that would allow them to avoid the chaos at the main entrance. Here's the seal containing Morio's body. It still appears to be closed. Thank goodness, Shin sighed, patting her back. My lady, we're almost done. All right, everyone, please stand back as I perform the shrine sealing ritual. Sakura smirked. Why, to seal Morio's body? Shin asked uncertainly. Why bother? He's safely sealed away. From what I understand, this version of the ritual is permanent and will prevent Morio from regaining his body in any way. Sakura muttered to herself, well, if you say so. As Shin began, an enormous explosion erupted outside, and Naruto flew in, colliding with a pillar. That hurt. Take this, he said, his voice falling. Problem, Naruto? Sasuke inquired. Stupid kill-stealing clones. No, I'm fine. Most of the stone golems have been destroyed, and the remainder are missing most of their limbs. Good, good, said someone. The team's heads jerked around, Sakura's misty sheath swirling more violently as the boys practiced their signature moves. Oh, no need for that, Yomi said as she emerged from one of the shrine's smaller holes. Everything has worked out as he dove to one side as a wind Rasengan attempted to occupy his torso, then jumped straight into the barrier surrounding Shin's ceiling just before Sasuke electrocuted him. Morio's voice continued as its host body disintegrated. The purpose of all of this was to hijack the ritual, because the true purpose of the shrine sealing ritual is both to unlock my true body and to merge the participants, who cannot leave the shrine until this is complete. Which one emerges dominant is determined by the strength of their chakra, and that's exactly how I came about in the first place. Your dear mother made me what I am when she performed this ritual. Sakura flexed her neck. Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, that's a lie. If you'd been created in the shrine sealing ritual, you wouldn't have had a chance to do anything last time. Good point, Sasuke said, nodding. What does this mean? We wait for him to take corporeal form, then Shin drops the barrier, and we thoroughly blow him to bits so that his chakra is the weaker one. Sasuke detached a shadow clone, who went to make a suggestion to Naruto. The blonde nodded enthusiastically and summoned a swarm of shadow clones before sending them all scurrying outside. The roof blew in as the two Sage Mode clones outside used their last Sage Chakra to blast the top off the shrine. Was that a good idea? Sakura wondered, keeping one eye on Morio as he waited for the seal on his body to be broken. Sasuke twirled the Raijin. Yes, it's all set up. Alright, then. Naruto will be able to blow bits off him with insert a rank technique. I resent that, exclaimed Naruto. I'm using Rasen Shuriken, he explained as massive gouts of wind-boosted flame shot skyward. S rank, then, and I'll see what happens if I ram a Yaokai suppressor into his face, she said, flipping through her tags. Gold Chakra Explosive Tag. Oh, I forgot about that. Morio, who had overheard her, exclaimed, wait, what? How come there's someone here with Gold Chakra? I made sure the only one died. 2 points, Sakura said cockily. First, you overlooked the people with recessive bloodlines. Second, you just more or less admitted to me and everyone else in the shrine that Shin's mother had gold chakra like me. And, since it's hereditary, like Shin herself. Outside, thunder rumbled as a massive storm raged. How do you know all of this? This lore has been lost. I've seen and understood everything, Sakura said to herself. Morio shot into his body as quickly as the seal unlocked. Malevolence oozed from the great dark mass of evil that arose from the pit in which it had been contained. Shin was replaced by a Naruto clone after a quick puff of smoke. Go ahead, Sasuke. The Raijin was raised by Sasuke. Guren, lightning connected heaven and earth after a great beast screamed. Naruto was the first to return his gaze to the shrine's glowing crater. Did we get him, guys? Morio howled, reforming quickly but sizzling where his dark form came into contact with the semi-molten stone. I guess not, it's my turn. With a single thought, 50 shadow clones appeared, and the screeches of many Rasen Shuriken filled the air. Oh, please, he's still coming back, Naruto asked, surprised. Sasuke struck him with a 3-foot lightning bolt, and then I used something that could hurt Millie. My turn now, Sakura said, launching a kunai into the crater. A flash followed by a horrifying scream. She turned to face the others, a smug expression on her face. Yeah, murmured Naruto. You have the gold chakra to the point where you can use it in jutsu and seals, go you. Sakura gave a V sign and frowned. So it wasn't the tag I was picking up. Shin, mind if I look at that bell? Shin walked over after casting a glance at Morio's thrashing form. Interesting. This appears to have some kind of switch function, as it's currently sealing away your gold chakra. But the downside is that it doesn't allow for a mixed state like mine. Either you're pure blue or pure gold, though it does let you use the other type via the bell. Sakura straightened. Okay, I know how to do this. First, switching would destroy both Morio and yourself. Second, there's no need for it. Get over to Naruto and give him some of your chakra via the bell, okay. Naruto, go into Sage Mode and build a Rasen Shuriken with the contributed gold chakra. Gold and black in their pure forms tend to negate one another, so this Rasen Shuriken will actually have some bite against him. Naruto clenched his fists, already in Sage Mode. Alright, Shin, let's get started. Are you able to control chakra that isn't your own? Naruto smiled. The majority of my combat style revolves around it, whether from a clone, nature, or the... He trailed off. Forget about the last one, here we go. Stay down as it forms. Morio had finished regenerating once more. Okay, that was extremely irritating. Where are my 4 ninja? They could be very useful at this time. The screech of a Rasen Shuriken approached once more. This again. It didn't work the first time. Sakura had overestimated the consequences. The gold chakra in the Rasen Shuriken reacted explosively with the black chakra in Morio's form. When the 3 Konoha emerged from the increasingly unrecognizable ruins of the shrine, they noticed 2 things. Shin, glowing a faint gold as she safely absorbed Morio's power, and a hole so deep it looked like lava was erupting. Well, there's not much point in trying to carry out the plan, Shizuku grumbled, staring at the volcano that had replaced their benefactor's body. What do you think? Setsuna inquired. Right, let's just go find some village willing to take us in. I hear Kiri still has a shortage of skilled personnel. Or we could join Odo. Odo sounds better given our extensive criminal records. Kakashi smirked. Run that by me again, Sasuke summoned lightning. I call it the Guren. Its strength is determined by the strength of the thunderstorm, and it costs almost no chakra. Definitely a good finishing move. I see. And it worked to temporarily harm Morio, which is good to know. Now, what about that seal of yours? I decided it would be easier to just blow Morio up repeatedly so that Shin could absorb his chakra. It's helped in one way. Her chakra reserves are now respectable enough that she could probably undo the bell seal in another couple of years, and from there it's not far to ascending. Bringer of Dawn. Interesting. I'll tell the Hokage about it later this month. Naruto raised his head. Do you understand the chain of command any longer? Only in relation to my subordinates, which you three are still. You looked contrite for a moment. Just, Naruto. Danger. Naruto raised his head from where he was watching 1,000 or so clones attempt to create a tornado. What exactly is it? Sasuke. Sakura appeared in the vicinity. Apparently Konoha had some trouble before we returned with ninja on flying machines, and they're on their way again. And a mission team Guren and I were on appears to be mixed up in it. I guess so. What mission were they on? Escort. Amaru showed up to help Tsunade heal everyone, and we offered her an escort back home. But there were complications. She was being followed by Sky Ninja, and they destroyed her village while she was gone. Naruto abruptly turned to the northeast, interrupting Sakura's explanation. Never mind. I believe I know most of the rest. She was shunned as a child. She had a demonic beast inside her, and despair triggered it. Sakura appeared startled. Yes, that's what the report said they'd inferred. But how? Millie is awake. There's a big blast of yokai from the northeast, and it's not one she recognizes. The terms were picked up on by Sasuke. Yokai in particular. Yes, and she should recognize any yokai on the planet. But it also has some of Morio's black chakra properties. So that's how you figured out the rest. Yep, Jinchuriki territory again. Sasuke, get us some height? I don't want to fight whatever's coming inside Konoha. Sasuke nodded, slashing his thumb in a deliberate motion. Intel, I'll check with the old man once we're in the air. Yokai, are you sure? Mandius sniffed and closed his eyes. There is something in the air, and you claim Millie doesn't recognize it. No, not at all, Naruto said, slightly adjusting his grip on the elderly sage as the hawk banked. Yaokai's 10 tails fragments, right. Could this just be a tiny little bit? Perhaps. We never figured out what happened to the consciousness, though none of the 9 have anything that can be traced back to it. The 10 tails was pure malevolent evil, and we're lucky it moved slowly enough for life to survive where it couldn't. Naruto shook his head. Couldn't it just have vanished? We could be that lucky, but I've learned not to bet on things like that, especially in the presence of Millie. A valid point. For the next few minutes, everyone remained silent as they moved in the direction Naruto had indicated. The silence was broken first by one of the hawks. What does something that large do in the sky? Sasuke cast a downward glance. I don't quite see it yet, his Sharingan said briefly. Wait, there's a dot, but I can't get any more information from it. It's some kind of fortress or city, and it's enormous. More than that, Mandius said, suddenly tense. The area of yokai ahead has greatly expanded, and I believe the flying object is powered entirely by whatever is emitting it. Inside her host, Millie snarled. Something about it not being an ethical source of power, and an old foe known as Mr. W. Wow, she's really riled up right now. The hawks then broke formation, diving to the sides as a swarm of one-man flying machines bore down on them. Sasuke's eyes widened. That gear they have drains their chakra to run. Nice, Sakura said, narrowing her eyes for a moment before flickering into empty air and being replaced by one of the pilots. Dismiss Mandias for a moment, I've got you a better ride. I like how you think, Sakura, Naruto said, the fox sage disappearing from his lap as he prepared to switch places with her. Would you like me to summon you in? Yeah, she exclaimed, then a thought struck her. Just watch how much you pump in, okay? Don't blow this up. Naruto grimaced. Good point, 2, 1, go. A horizontal comet smashed into Anchor Mansion's forward superstructure and exploded. Naruto coughed as he tumbled from the wreckage. Damn it, still too much, he sighed, crouching and biting his thumb. Calling transport. Naruto connected with the natural world and entered sage mode as his foxes, then teammates, appeared in puffs of smoke. Summoning once more. Mandias jerked his head. You and your silly comments. He closed his eyes and went into sage mode. There is definitely something very powerful here, as well as. He paused. The boy with the half-dog bloodline, the boy with the hive, and the Hyuga girl are all familiar. Sakura's eyes blinked. How come you remember Hinata's surname but not the others? She's got a Dijutsu? Those are important, Mandias said, pointing to one of the large buildings that comprised the flying fortress. I think she's fighting someone in there. Hinata spun away from a dark shockwave, performing a nearly instantaneous chitin to deflect the attack, and body flickered behind Shin to attack. He fashioned a shield out of shadow arms similar to the leech's, preventing her from targeting his tenketsu, and she danced back out of close range to refocus. Things were not going well. Kiba and Shino had been hit by a darkness wave and were rendered unconscious. Amaru was still recovering from having the beast ripped from her, and her Juuken attacks were easily blocked. But it's always blocked, never evaded. Idea. She dashed back into the room, chakra building in her hands, and a palm strike flashed out. He created the leech's shadow arms and blocked her as usual. So she took one of those arms, anchored herself to the floor, and used those points of contact to swing in a lion fist charge to about her safe maximum. Shin was thrown into the wall, and nearly herself, but her quick reflexes allowed her to let go of the arm before it pulled her along with her adversary. Kiba sneezed. You waited long enough. She gave him a cold stare. My usual approach is ineffective here, though his chakra is so out of control that I fear sealing up his tenketsu will cause him to explode. Shino swayed slightly as they examined their opponent. How is he able to respond to your attacks? I believe it's a mental reading effect. When I was undecided about my response a moment ago, he didn't guard anywhere until I decided. And then he was limited to the least dangerous choice. Amaru's voice could be heard from around the corner. The Zero Tails. It can do that, yes. It's as if it has a mind that stretches outside of its container, as if there should be an intelligence big enough for it. Hinata and her team said. I've had it happen before. I can tell when people are unhappy, when they're upset. And only now do you realize what was really going on, Hinata explained. A roar caused them to look around. I will kill all of you, Shin yelled, tearing the wall apart with his shadow hands. Hinata just smiled. The roof collapsed inwards, revealing a red and orange shape falling through it. Hey, cretin. Naruto charged in, claws first and 6 solid tails slashed. Let's go to war. Shin's flying form went straight through the cheeks of one of Anchor Vanshin's great stone faces. Naruto leapt after him, wincing slightly as his second stage form shuddered with insecurity. Millie, what's the matter with you? Don't. No, it's just making me angry, just like when Madara had control over me. Are you destroying my mental landscape? Weeb, jump into the ocean. It's much more difficult to break, and don't look at it as a challenge. Oh, that. And it represents my parents' influences on you, both of whom are associated with water. Naruto returned to the fight, barely stopping a dark orb of the black chakra held in his opponent's hand. Hey, there's a copyright problem. 3 of his tails propelled him backwards away from the insane doctor. Is this how you do it, Millie? You're serious. Is it time to blow something up with no repercussions? Yes, just once. Naruto gave up control to Millie, who mixed some of his offered chakra with her own. You know, if Ozzy hadn't tricked me, I'd never have had the concentration to do this. He didn't say how long it would take me to figure out how to blow things up with my mind. The biju ball formed in her mouth as she finished. Now, how do I relight it? Ooh, shiny. She lost her focus as a result. As far as attacks go, the biju ball was forgiving. An enormous directed explosion of chakra shot out of her, their mouth at Shin, who moved his shadow arms in the way but couldn't quite block it properly. As he landed on all fours, Naruto noticed a flicker of movement over in the scorched crater that appeared to go most of the way through what was left of Anchor Vanshin. Hinata came to a halt, a contented expression on her face. I thought so. The amount of chakra in the air was enough to overload his senses. With another little chakra flare, she vanished back to the room where the others were just as Shin's system overloaded. Naruto stood there watching the Zero Tails burst from his body. Ouch. That's why, when you put insanely potent chakra sources inside your body, you need to keep an eye on how old you are. For starters, if you're old enough to do it yourself, you're too old. The leech made an unusually large amount of chakra by drawing from Anchor Vanshin instead of the other way around, but was stopped by a blizzard of Chidori Sendan and a B-ranked water technique to the face. Naruto, Mandias exclaimed as he dashed into the room on the heels of the 2 special Jonin. I've figured it out. It's the 10 Tails brain. You mean this is the thing's mind? Naruto asked, keeping one eye on his tails as they fought off the leech's arms. No, it's just a brain. A huge fragment of thinking chakra with nothing to fill it, so it seeks out other people's emotions. I think it was transferring some of the 10 Tails' old instincts to Millie, but luckily her own personality is stronger. Great, Naruto said as he began to slide across the floor, the Zero Tails reeling his transformed body towards it. Is there anything I can do about it? Oh, I see. There should be some kind of control mechanism somewhere on the fortress. Destroy it, and it'll lose whatever sanity it has. Naruto removed one of its chakra arms with a quick bite and spat it out. Why would you want to send it insane? Sasuke had already gone to look for Hinata. Sakura shook her head. If it can't think, how can it plan properly? She asked, following him. I have to admit, it's the best plan so far, damn it, stop trying to remove those. Naruto briefly reabsorbed a tail in order to get the dozen or so hands clinging to it to let go, then remanifested it, and bundled them up with it. I'd love to let loose on it, but at this point, my options are basically physical combat, or a 100-foot crater, and it's moving too damn fast to aim. At least Shin was slow. He cast a glance over at his summons. And you're not assisting. Aya shook her head. Big fights are cool. Lee nodded to her fellow summon, then took some of the food he'd taken out of nowhere. Mandias disapproved of the bucket of popcorn. However, Naruto, don't worry, you're drawing so much power compared to it that the Zero Tails can't possibly do any permanent damage to you. That doesn't make it any less painful. Naruto yelped as one of his tails went pulled especially hard. I knew there had to be a drawback to transforming like this. At least your skin didn't blow up, which was a possibility for these few tails. Now tell me. The Zero Tails' arms all stiffened at once, flinging Naruto towards a wall and screaming. Finally, Naruto exclaimed, shaking his head and inhaling heavily. I'm hoping this works. His tails rose around his muzzle, and he exhaled a powerful burst of chakra-laced wind. The 6 tails caught the stream of air and turned it. Cannon of spiral wind. The original attack he'd learned from the Forbidden Scroll all those years ago wasn't very clear on how to execute it, and every other time he tried it had failed. The main issue was that he couldn't figure out how to add the rotation before it left his mouth without destroying it, and when he did, it was usually too late. Actually, due to the relatively low stability of the vortex he created now, it wouldn't have worked with fewer than 6 tails to get it rotating. But it was enough to rip a hole right through the Zero Tails' body, and it began thrashing around wildly in what appeared to be death throes. The entire structure shook as something significant exploded with a sizzle. Anchor Vanshin started to list. Naruto raised what appeared to be a paw. Should I abandon ship? Aye, the 3 foxes exclaimed as they vanished in puffs of smoke. The Jinchuriki loped over to the side and jumped off. They say cats land on their feet, so surely foxes do as well. Wham! Oh, with a wince at the sensation of his chakra paths contracting, Naruto rolled upright, shook himself, and released Milla's chakra. He shrank back from his 15-foot-plus fox form to his normal human form. Man, I didn't pay Jiraiya enough for the seals on these things. He grinned as he double-checked that all of his clothes were still there. Where have the others gone? This is all very concerning. Mandias agreed, sitting on his haunches. If the 10 tails brain survived apart from the other pieces, it's possible that the intelligence did as well. Does it mean anything now that we've killed the leech? Naruto wondered. To be honest, I have no idea. It could complicate any plan to reassemble the 10 tails, or it could make it easier. We don't know. Lanny had appeared unsettled in recent minutes. Mandias, I have a problem. I believe some of my records are incorrect. I was checking them to see what we had on Madara. For a brief moment, Sasuke's eyes narrowed at the name. Who was the very first summoner? Mandias closed his eyes and relived his long memory. I believe it was Mary, the girl known as the Beast. Second, his voice had grown more confident. Shuichi. Third, Lanny was growing increasingly concerned as the old sage listed off the names one by one, checking them off against her small archival scroll. And the 10th, this is Naruto. And you're sure you didn't miss one? She inquired. I was here when the summon scroll was first made, and I guided every one of the fox's companions. I remember them all fondly. Right? She said as she unrolled the large scroll. Because there are 11 empty spaces. How strange, Mandias said, perplexed. I had no idea anything could interfere with the scroll's inherent connection. Please wait a moment. He closed his eyes again and went into sage mode, flipping through his memories like pages of a book. The first to sign did so at the left end of the scroll. Nothing wrong with the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. She couldn't form the characters right. 7th, 8th, 9th. His eyes widened. It's Naruto's signature. Madara's signature was in the 9th slot. And now it's in the 10th too, but he only signed once. Someone has snuck their name onto the scroll, and it's Madara Uchiha, which is impossible, because if he's in the 9th slot, he's dead. Sasuke blinked, surprised. Sakura smirked. Can you forge a signature on the scroll? No, it has to be your name in some way. A birth name, a given name, a true name. But not a false name. Then, Sakura's mind raced with ideas. Is it possible to change your name for the purposes of this? I mean, could someone change their name to Madara Uchiha, sign the scroll, or get their name on the scroll otherwise through that connection, and then change it back? That's disturbingly possible. It'd be extremely difficult to change any of the names in question, because they're fundamental parts of the person. But if our Uchiha massacring hypothetical villain did manage that, they'd be able to add themselves to the scroll like renewing a contract, reinforcing it. And they wouldn't even need to be in the same plane as the scroll. But who would do such a thing? And if this is the person we've all been calling Madara for the last decade and a half, why pretend to be him? Sasuke raised his hand slowly, just to be sure. This hypothetical villain did all the things I despised about the person we thought was Madara, right? Yes, so it appears that I still despise the same person, albeit under a different name. What is the fictitious name they're using? I believe Itachi mentioned Tobai in his letter to you. Sakura had turned a bright white. Configures. Pardon? Sasuke inquired. Sakura approached him and began counting. Itsubai, Nubai, Nanabi, Hitobai, Futabi, Mibai, Yobai, Itsubai, Nubai. Everyone's thoughts were racing ahead of her. Yabai Kakanobai. Oh, crap, Naruto exclaimed. Tobai. For a brief moment, there was silence. This explains a lot, Mandias said quietly. Thoroughly shaken, the three swore to never mention it again in the elemental countries and returned to Konoha, deciding that if they ever met Tobai on their missions, they would simply flee. If he was Deidara's teammate, as Itachi's letter suggested, they wouldn't want to be near the duo even under normal circumstances. Hello, guys. Sasuke and Naruto both froze before carefully retracting their respective knife hand strike and sweep kick. Sakura, it's time. One of the teams in the area had a Yamanaka, and they reported to Inoichi. The Three Tails has completed its reformation. Well, here we are, Sakura said as she looked over at the scratch force. Shizune, Tenten, and Ino had been brought along for the sealing in addition to her own full team. Lee, Kiba, and Shino completed the ranks, unfortunately. Hinata and Neji had both been preoccupied with clan business and hadn't had time to form their teams. Their mission was straightforward: place the Three Tails in a storage scroll. Jiraiya apparently had a special seal design that could take 3 tails of power. Sakura had examined it and declared it possible. The issue was keeping an eye out for anyone else in the area. That was why the majority of the ninja were there. Shizune motioned to the other 3 sealers. Come on, let's get the search mode set up. Shizune and the other 3 Kunoichi moved to the corners of a square and raised their arms. They all cut their thumbs on a signal, activated their copies of the seal technique, and fed them chakra. The intricate seal array immediately blossomed into the sky, thickening and solidifying so that when the feeds were cut, it stayed there before floating off to begin quartering the vast lake. Naruto stood there watching it float away in the water. That's really impressive, that something like that could seal an active, uncontained tailed beast. I mean, they usually have to be fought to a halt. Yeah, heh. About that, Sakura sighed. Naruto didn't even bother to turn around. Don't I have to fight it? Pretty much. The majority of the power is in the containment array. There wasn't much left for the capture array. Just hit it until the barrier solidifies properly, then we'll summon a fox to summon you out. He closed his eyes and drew in the power of nature. All right, ready now, and just in time. Sakura's eyes blinked. How do you know? A tailed beast. Sakura cursed cleverly. I can't believe I forgot about that. Of all times to have that Hyuga clan meeting. We could have sorted this out much easier. It's not every day that their clan head's second child goes off to a Chunin exam. But we're here now. Naruto gathered a small group of clones and began spinning up a Rasen Shuriken. 1, 2, 3. He threw it. The Three Tails emerged from the water with a roar and received a Rasen Shuriken to the face. Sasuke, the Jinchuriki inquired absent-mindedly. Not much damage. That shell must be one of the toughest things on the planet. Get some good storm clouds going, and I'll be able to blast it whenever you want. Sounds good to me. Guys, 2 of you charge up and help boost Sasuke's fire, and the other 2 come with me. The 3 Sage Mode Naruto charged off in unison, all 3 working the seals for dryling fang bullets. Shizune stood there watching the explosions begin. Wow, I never realized what Team 7 deals with before. Kiba laughed. What exactly are we? Chopped liver. Akamaru let out a bark. Kiba became pale. No, you can't take a taste to see. He has a point, Shino stated monotonously. Our most recent major mission involved a demonic entity on par with a tailed beast, though our utility was limited. Heh, yeah, that mission was a little perplexing. Why? Tenten inquired, unsealing the Garian sword and spinning it in her palm for a brief moment. Our foe's name was Shin. But, my young Iburian comrade, aren't you called Shino? Lee inquired, perplexed. That's exactly my point. Ah, yes. Guys? Ino inquired, looking up. Wasn't there a huge thunderstorm here just a minute ago? A 2-foot bolt of lightning struck the water, creating a crater, and then a pair of Rasen shurikens struck the three tails in quick succession. Naruto swatted away the last of his charging clones. Damn, there's not much time left, Sakura. I've got 2 options here. What are they? She inquired. Eat or you'll go fuzzy. Sakura shook her head briefly. Was being eaten a viable option for Naruto? The second one. Okay. He poured out his Sage Chakra in a single massive pressure damage, then drew out 7 chakra tails. That was the point at which his second stage began to grow significantly. When the 3 tails sensed the presence of another like it, they reverted to the relatively primitive animal instincts they had reverted to after reincorporation. Rival, fight, kill. Everyone looked on in awe as the 2 titans clashed. Naruto's fox paws glowing with red-orange yokai as he performed the water-walking exercise on a grand scale. Does anyone have a can opener the size of the Hokage statue? A few people sighed in relief, not quite believing that Naruto was truly in command. Why do tailed beast things always go for the tails? As Naruto shook the 3 tails, a massive tidal wave erupted from the impact. I suggest we run, Shino said calmly. Alright, Ikamaru, you need to take those pills to strengthen your natural connection to the 3 tails. Really? The boy inquired. For what? Of course, you can call it to the surface. But it's right over there, he said, pointing, and the sound Nin followed. The massive turtle appeared for a brief moment flying through the air in a water eruption before being slammed back into the lake by a massive lightning bolt shot down from the still present clouds. Irari's mouth dropped open. How could we have missed that? Who knows? Renji grumbled. I don't, Gazu said, uncertainly. Who cares how? Let's get over there, yelled Guren, taking off across the water with her team in pursuit. That's it for me, Sasuke said, assessing the receding clouds. That last one completely depleted the storm cell. No more Kirin today. Sakura winced at the impact of the turtle's tail striking the fox in the chest. To be honest, I think Naruto would do better if we were a little further away. Sai smiled creepily as usual. A major issue in high-level ninja battles is exposing people to the fear of inflicting collateral damage. I knew it, Sakura exclaimed, temporarily forgetting the fight. I knew all of your boring sayings came from a book. I was reading that one last night. You're clearly not very far into Danzo's big book of ninja. That's in the first chapter, he said, his smile changing slightly. Though I think the 3rd chapter is more appropriate here. There's a quote that says, if the majority of the force is on the sidelines, the battle grows 9 times out of 10. Attack. When Guren's squad approached, the team spun. Oh, look. Orochimaru's experiments, Sakura grumbled. Earth, fire, and water, as well as 3 unknowns, one of whom has a keke. Toru. 3 elements, Toru. Yes, the leader, the woman, and the green coat. There's earth in there, but I can't quite tell what the other 2 elements are. It could be ice with earth added. Would you like to take her, or should I? You do it because the earth and water outweigh the wind. Her element is vulnerable to electricity if normal rules are followed. In one hand, Sai drew his sword, and in the other, his brush. I'll engage the one with the grenade launcher, Sakura. I'll deal with the gas mask guy, she said, as a swirling mist of water encircled her. Hey, exclaimed Kiba. What exactly are you looking at? Sound ninja, Sakura replied, advancing wrapped in thin streamers of fast water. Now she tells us. Kiba shook his head. Come on, fellas. The flawless crystal collided with the chirping blade and yielded to it. Guren scowled and threw away her lance. Damn you, what is it? It's known as the lightning element. It's weak to wind and strong to earth, and water strengthens it. I didn't mean it like that. Oh, the sword. Not telling. Flickered behind Sasuke as she spun away from her next attack. A salvo of crystal shuriken. Wave of crystal imprisonment. As the attack hit it, Sasuke dissolved into nothing. I see. Electric aura armor. A curtain of electricity appeared over the body of the original, who had not moved. Am I correct in assuming that because electricity disrupts the structure of your element, your indirect attack entrapment techniques no longer work? Guren frowned briefly. The crossings of God. A line of clear crystal obelisks rose from the ground and marched towards Sasuke. When the final one was about to appear directly beneath him, he smirked. Nothing showed up. I didn't think so. Why didn't you just run away? Don't underestimate me. Sharingan. Guren flipped through another set of hand seals. 8th Jade Crystal Wall Formation. Lightning Component. Jade Crystal Jail. There's more lightning. Guren nearly snarled. She slammed her hands on the ground, pulling up a massive amount of her remaining chakra. The labyrinth of jade crystal. An enormous, gemstone-shaped prison formed around Sasuke in seconds, formed from a number of flowers. When Sasuke pushed the Raijin into the wall, it sizzled but only broke up a small area. The wound healed after it was removed. The large structure disperses the electricity, which is interesting. Guren's voice rang out throughout the maze. Give up. You can't keep that lightning armor on forever, and your Sharingan isn't going to help you here. There's too much to see, not too little. I'm not just my eyes, Sasuke said, his free hand chirping, and the Raiden's edge lengthened. An important principle is that you can't just keep something running for free, and I imagine that this enormous cage of yours takes up a lot of chakra to keep running, even if you don't have to repair it. So, how much chakra do you have? Sasuke launched Chidori Senbon at the walls before stabbing the enlarged Raiden into one of them. And the only way out of a labyrinth is to keep your hand on one wall. As she ran into a dense smokescreen, Sakura frowned. The fire user was clearly more skilled in indirect arts than the majority of fire nature wielders. Seriously, how many ways did you need to set something on fire? But her water nature made her a difficult opponent for any fire user, and true sight rendered a smokescreen useless. She sneezed. At least, if you remembered to cover your mouth. A quick improvised water technique got the soot out of her lungs, and moving her water-soaked forehead protector band across her mouth got rid of anything else that came along. Who are you? Said a voice from the mist. Sakura ignored the direction it was coming from, instead focusing on the true Kajiri. Nobody creates water techniques for that particular situation. Smoke clones emerged from the mist as his voice continued. It doesn't matter, you can't fight an enemy who is as invisible as smoke. The swirling mist aura around Sakura sharpened, transforming into thin razor blades that spun in an intricate pattern. Water cutting dance. See, that doesn't work. The smoke clones simply reform. And, wait, shouldn't the technique have ended by now? Binding smoke prison. Sakura blinked, her other elements switching from fire to wind. Water dispersion. The watery streamers slowed, joined together to form a continuous bubble, and then blasted outwards in all directions. Kajiri staggered back, startled, as black water began to fall. They caught all of my smoke particles. I understand, that's why I did it. Exploding flame shot. Kajiri rubbed his hands together for a moment before unleashing a shower of fireballs on Sakura. Take it. No, thank you. Sakura deduced from the chakra release what he was doing to generate such fireballs. Neat. I must say, water rose up in front of her to block the fireballs. You have a much more diverse selection of fire attacks than most people I run into. Here's one of mine. I thought you were a water person, he exclaimed. And wind, how are you going to? Sakura blinked, and the water shield disintegrated. Because of her fire resistance, the next fire shot hit her and splashed off her. The firestorm dance. The fire and wind wrapped around her body, screaming with speed and power, just like the water had. She then vanished. Kajiri took too long trying to figure out where she'd flickered to. Her snap kick grazed his right kneecap, and the hungry flames devoured him. That was less than pleasant. She shuddered, returning to water and rinsing off. She then staggered. Wow, that took more out of me than I expected. I'm guessing the smoke overwhelmed his chakra. Dark smoke ball. Sai deflected the grenade that was heading straight for him and unfurled his scroll. I notice you employ smoke attacks. Is there a reason for this? Huh? Now tell me about your mother, Sai said, brush in hand. I've been trying to figure out how Naruto pulls off his friendship attacks, but all the psychology books seem to go on about something that doesn't seem to be related. Kiss shook his head, perplexed. I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Clearly, was that meant as an insult? Yes, Sai replied, continuing to paint. I'm not going to take that away from you, smoke dragon. Smoking does not make you look cool, and I shudder to think where the dragon bit comes from. Sai flourished his scroll, releasing an ink griffon that swallowed the smoke dragon whole. My attacks are water-natured, because water washes smoke out of the air. You're out of moves already. That's sad, Sai said, motioning forward. Go get him. Wait a minute, please. You fired a grenade launcher at me, Sai shrugged. I feel no sympathy. Tenten sighed and shook her head. Are you sure you want to do this with bats? Renji shook his head. My bats come in handy. Oh, I'm sure they're useful, it's just, they're regular bats, not even large. Really? Well, can't you hear something? This ringing sound on the edge of hearing. Makes you feel woozy, makes you feel. He was kicked in the head by Kiba and Akamaru. Shut up. That sounds like a broken dog whistle. Tenten shrugged after blinking. That works for me, shall I finish him? You may proceed. She spread out a scroll. An attack on everything, including the kitchen sink. A slew of large appliances flew from the scroll and pounced on Renji, culminating in a metal sink and pipes. Kiba smirked. I'm not complaining or anything, but why? I filled it last month when we had to demolish a house for comedy value. I see you're a very supple and young opponent. Lee launched a series of kicks, and Nurari effortlessly moved out of the way of them. Wow, I can tell this is a true test of my youthful abilities. Do you say that all the time? Of course, youthfulness must be constantly proclaimed. Lee finally managed to land a hit, though Naruri deformed with the blow to avoid being damaged, and discovered that his hands were covered in a strange, slimy substance. "Ah, I see you found my slime suit. It will keep you from moving, resisting your attempts to move even as I rob them of their force," Naruri chuckled. Lee's eyes shone with light. "A test? The sixth gate of joy. Wait a minute, what? Good morning, Peacock." To his dismay, Naruri discovered that his slime suit was not impervious to evaporation. Gazu slammed his fists against the ground. "I will break you, puny little Konoha ninja." Ino cast a glance over at Shino. "Is he on steroids or what?" "I'm not sure," Shino replied, and a swarm of bugs swarmed out. Would it be possible to target him with a mind-body switch? He'd have to be relatively still first. Dad taught me the faster version, but it still takes a second or so. "Then I'll hold him still so you can do that," he said, as his bugs merged into a pair of clones. Leaning Iron Mountain, Ino stood there watching his attack. "How does it get a name?" "It's a tackle." Shino strained to keep the larger ninja at bay as his muscles swelled alarmingly. "Please, now." "Sorry about that." "Mind, body transfer." Gazu struggled for another second or two before stopping and smiling. "Done." "Very well," Shino said as he released the possessed ninja. "Please remain still." A few orange-red ants emerged from his clothing. "These are the most venomous insects that do not naturally enhance their venom with chakra. I have enhanced them with chakra. They will sting this ninja's body, causing him to die, and then you will leave his body." "Ouch. Oh, those things hurt." In most cases, that is the primary purpose of an insect sting. The venom will take effect quickly, so end your technique. Ino's body jerked to life again. It had fallen over and started floating in the lake in the meantime. Wow, that was rough. Gazu froze and collapsed. Sasuke arrived at a blind wall. "If I have this layout right, this will be the center through here." Guren mumbled, almost out of chakra. "Go away. Leave me alone, I'm tired." The Raijin carved a hole in the wall. "Surrender, and you'll live, though you won't be using any jutsu anytime soon." "How come you spare me?" "Because you're the leader of this team, and you presumably know a lot about Orochimaru's plans," Sasuke said as he swung his legendary sword, severing the two last fingers on each hand. "That should prevent you from performing any hand seals," he said, taking the fingers and sealing them in a spare scroll. "If you cooperate, you might be able to get them back." The crystal labyrinth disintegrated. Sasuke turned to face the main fight. How much longer, Naruto? Naruto had extracted another tail at some point and had the three tails in a choke hold. "I believe it is weakening." His pupils dilated. "However, I broke the containment seal, most likely when I had to use a biju ball on this guy." The turtle thrashed one last time before stopping moving. Shizune summoned the sealing team and persuaded them to rally behind her. "Come on, before it recovers." Sakura sighed and leaned on Sasuke for support. The trick had worked, and the three tails was trapped inside the barrier. Naruto sagged next to them. "Tell me about it. I'm almost out of energy after channeling that much chakra for that long." "No one else is in much better shape," Shizune said. "Tenten and Kiba are in the best shape, followed by Sai, Shino, and Ino. But everyone else has almost no chakra left and Lee's muscles are severely overstressed." Sasuke looked down at the hilt of his sword. "If it hadn't been for that, I'd have run out of chakra there." "We still won," Naruto said. "And that implies..." A flash of motion slammed into his side and blew up. Sasuke's hand grabbed the Raijin so quickly that it appeared as if he flickered it into his hand. Akatsuki attack. A second explosive arrived, which he sliced in half before detonating. "Naruto!" exclaimed Shizune. It didn't look promising. The explosive had been small, but it had blown off his arm at the elbow, and he appeared to be in shock. "We have to get out of here," Sakura stated quietly. "They're after the three tails, and we can't fight them with just Sasuke left in fighting shape." "I hate doing it, but you're right," Shizune admitted. "However, all of this was for naught. It wasn't worthless. We prevented Orochimaru from acquiring it." Everyone returned to the rally point. Tobai waved goodbye to the departing Konoha ninja. "Goodbye. See you soon." "Tobai, you really irritate me." Tobai inquired innocently. "Do I, senpai? Do you think that's a good thing?" "Shut up," Deidara said, pulling a scroll from his jacket. "It's time to blow this barrier wide open." "Is that one of the really big fireworks?" Yes, Tobai, it's a fireworks display." "I see," Tobai said sadly, shaking his head. "It's a shame we couldn't deny Akatsuki the use of one of the biju, but we did obtain useful information on my former students' plans." "Oh, Naruto, I'm still dazed. Did someone get the number of the biju who ran me over?" muttered Naruto as he regained consciousness. He then noticed his arm. "Oh, right. Better deal with that first," he said, closing his eyes tightly. He shapeshifted his arm back to normal slowly, with a few stops and starts. Erg, that took a lot out of me. Shizune walked in. How did you do that, Naruto? Regeneration. Now I'm starving. Regrowing an arm does that. What happened? Well, that's a bummer. Sakura sighed. Tell me about it. After all that work, Akatsuki comes along and steals it. I suppose so, but at least we got out before they found out anything about us. Itachi coughed wetly, then looked down at the blood-splattered hand he'd used to cover his mouth. As predicted, I'll have to face Sasuke within the next month. I believe I have completed the adaptation to my eye's chakra network. I hope it has the desired effect on Amaterasu. Kasame, please leave me alone. I have personal matters to attend to. Kasame smiled. What, writing a letter to your girl again? Sure, Itachi, I'll give you that privacy, the shark man said, shifting his legendary sword on his shoulder. I'm not sure why you're so upset about it. So what if you were a clan heir? That was 7 years ago. And it's not as if you enjoyed it anyway. At least that's what you were trying to say with the whole murder thing. Or was it that they just didn't like the girl? He chuckled, then left the room they were staying in a small town on the outskirts of Fire Country. Itachi didn't say anything else. He'd carefully crafted the image of some secret lover, but he doubted Kasame believed it. Whether brash or not, the man was an S-ranking missing ninja. No, it simply provided him with an excuse to turn a blind eye whenever Itachi engaged in his private matters. He measured his chakra in silence. Good. At the very least, the disease has had no effect on this. He sat down at the shabby table provided and began writing 2 letters. One was to his brother, in which he described the battleground he had chosen, a fortress dating back before the founding, and how to disarm the numerous traps leading into the Uchiha fortress. Of course, he missed 1 out of every 10. It was pointless to allow his brother to become complacent. The second was addressed simply to bearer. You have received this letter because the crows believe you are their best hope for survival. The summons issued by the Yatagara are exacting and precise, and they demand that the individual consider themselves to be a part of the collective. You will find them loyal if you can meet their high standards. They will be skilled, as long as you are skilled in return. Maintain their legacy. Itachi, a member of the Uchiha clan. He carefully rolled up both letters into scrolls, then his hands flickered through the summoning hand seals at the kind of speed that explained why he was still worthy of the name he'd been called in Kano. Even now, dying of lung cancer and with his eyes barely able to see in black and white. Paragon. He is not a ninja prodigy. Ninjutsu, or the subtle art of illusions, or seals could be skills of prodigies. There were even fighting prodigies in specific styles. No, Itachi was regarded as the next shinobi god, a man to whom all ninja arts came as naturally as breathing. Now it comes more naturally, and, like the previous, he detested the need for them. Such were history's ironies. His palm landed on the tabletop with no more force than was required, and a trio of crows appeared. He gave the first letter to one of them. Go. It is the hawk summoner you are looking for, Madara said flatly. With Itachi's illness progressing to this point, Madara knew he'd be contacting Sasuke for his last wish, death at the hands of his brother. And, in Madara's opinion, this would finally bring Sasuke out into the open and manipulable. He put it out of his mind and returned his attention to the larger 2. One of them held a scroll with the emblem of a 3-footed crow in her claws. This was his summon contract. The other was older and only slightly larger, but summoning it had taken Itachi the most chakra. The crow's boss was here. Itachi bowed his head and said, Magoichi. The term was part name, part title. The crow's leader was always Magoichi, and their previous name was never mentioned again. Why, Itachi, it's time. I won't make it through the year, you must find another. Indeed. The younger crow peered through the window. The Magoichi landed a wing on Itachi's back after he raised his hand. Not at all, Sayaka. She frowned before nodding. I see, a messenger is one thing, but this is something else. Itachi valued his summons because of their sharp intellect. They, like him, rarely needed many words to say or hear. I'll summon Sayaka and yourself as part of my next skirmish, and Madara will think I'm sick and made a mistake, which accounts for the unusually high chakra costs. Yes, seek out the best summoner for you. Konoha is my preference, but I wouldn't mind if you went elsewhere. The words did not have to be said. We will comply with your request. Let the red bell ring once more. The Uchiha nodded once more, this time in memory, when the bell had rung for him. Is he prepared? Magoichi arched his brow. The transplant is complete, but it will take 3 months for the eye to recharge. All right, then. Both crows flew away at the same time. Sasuke blinked as he unrolled the scroll. I see. What exactly is it? He handed it to Naruto without saying anything. Oh, I see. Well, we'll help you get there. I know you don't want us getting involved in the fight, but you know we'd do it in a heartbeat if you did, right? Yes, and thank you, Sasuke said, closing his eyes for a moment before standing up. I need to gather some equipment. What exactly is it? I am an adult according to the Uchiha clan's laws, because I can perform fire ninjutsu. But I am not a ninja according to their laws, and this is my last chance, my only chance, to correct that. Uchiha ninja, true ninja, bear the Sharingan and are skilled in its use in ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, and you are all of them. Yes, which is why I need to prove it to another clan ninja and be officially recognized. For a brief moment, Naruto remained silent. I think I understand what you mean. It's important to do things correctly. Then he made a clapping motion with his hands. However, there's no time like the present to get started, is there? And we'll need to be ready, too, because Itachi has Kasama as a partner, and we'll need to keep him busy. Do you think he'd react well to a wind-fire Rasengan? Or a fire-boosted Rasen Shuriken? I don't know nor care. Please excuse me, Sasuke said as he walked to the edge of the training ground and blurred into Shunshin. Naruto shrugged and formed a clone, which flew away to warn Sakura and Sai. Hopefully, the albino ninja would be available, if only for air cover. Okay, Sai, I think we'll need you overhead, keeping an eye out for Akatsuki members other than Itachi and Kasama. Sasuke, I've left 3 foxes in Konoha with orders to summon you back as soon as one of them disappears. Summon Aya to get back there, and take Itachi's body or at least the eyes. We can give him a decent and honorable burial if you get the body. I comprehend. Good. Sakura, we're almost certainly going to have to fight Kasama. Do you have any of those fancy seals that allow water breathing? No, Naruto, but I have some of Tenten's oxygen pills. Just take one at the beginning of the fight. No need for a complicated solution. Okay, fair enough, but how do these things work? It's dehydrated air. Alright, Sai leaned in close to Sakura. I don't believe that's possible, is it? No, but they're quite complex, and he relies on simple explanations. I see. An example of what is commonly referred to as lies to children, which you explain in a way that the subject can understand. Anyhow, Sasuke, where are we going? During the Long War, the Uchiha built a number of hideouts around the countries. This particular one is the 8th, built by Uchiha Madara to commemorate his becoming the clan's leader, and now that I think about it, to commemorate his contract with the fox as well. The symbol is of 8 swirls surrounding the kanji of fox, though I imagine he was a little disappointed he couldn't have made it the 9th hideout, and Sakura frowned briefly. You presumably mean a strategic location in the absence of the forests, a trade route that was then rendered inaccessible by the creation of the forests. Perhaps it did begin as a fortress and then transitioned into a hideout. Keeping them was only for formality, or so the clan as a whole thought. Right, show us the way. Sasuke nodded, double-checked his gear. In addition to the standard loadout and his Raijin, he had an enlarged shuriken pouch and a number of storage scrolls, and leapt into the distance. Danzo took up a sheet of paper and examined it more closely. Have you seen this, Hiram? What exactly is it? Uzumaki, Haruno, and Sai are looking into Akatsuki activity in Fire Country. That's not unusual. Is Sasuke among them? That's it, Danzo said, handing over a second scroll. He's requested 3 days of bereavement leave and 4 days of convalescence due to the death of his brother. Sarutobi sighed as he quickly worked it out. Oh, well, at least it's not within our jurisdiction. Sai stooped out of the sky on one of his ink birds, sword drawn, and landed hard on something in a small depression off to the side of the team's path. That'll be Kasama. See you later, Sasuke. Naruto exclaimed, forming clones. Sasuke turned his head slightly and was gone in an instant. As Sai ascended away on a bird, looking a little worse for wear, a pair of great breakthroughs and a fireball shot through the intervening trees towards his intended location. For a brief moment, water just followed him, until the attempt to transform Kasama from sushi into a more well-done fish dish arrived. How about it, Sakura? No, he got it in Samehada. As a high-pressure, very thin stream of water cut down some nearby trees, the 2 special Jonin jumped to the side. I already miss Sasuke, and I keep telling you, I still haven't figured out how to aspect lightning. It's not as simple as Sasuke makes it look with his broken sword. Can't it be repaired? Naruto asked, a clone vanishing under water bullets. Sakura slashed a ballistic shark made of water with a wind blade. Not the point, Naruto, concentrate. Can we get rid of all of his water? Sakura blinked and turned to face Kasama. Not with that kind of chakra supply. In fact, he appears to be about to flood the valley. Naruto's eyes blinked. Wait a minute, this is a mile across. I know he did that big thing in Suna, but that was a tight canyon. That was also a Jonin level chakra supply. He has more chakra measured in tails. Have I mentioned before how much I despise chakra drainers who can actually drain me? They jumped over a tidal wave as Kasama released approximately 1,000,000 tons of water. Sakura regarded the depth with admiration. Damn, I can't summon. My otters would be ripped to shreds by his sharks on this kind of terrain. Any thoughts? Naruto's eyes turned yellow as he snapped his fingers. Rasen Shuriken. Unlikely to work. Not with a sword capable of absorbing chakra. Any chakra-laced wind would lose its cutting power, and he might even be able to force detonate it, Sakura observed. How come he hasn't killed us yet? 2, 1, and he just pegged the last one. Take cover. A massive burst of water shot through the area where they used to be. Take a step forward. Don't give up. Stop. 3 paces left. Kunai at ceiling. Right dodge. Block 20 meters further down the corridor. Sasuke's Sharingan shone brightly in the darkness of the Uchiha hideout as he navigated the intricate series of traps. Many of them were tests in and of themselves. One brought most of the roof down in a small section, necessitating the use of the replacement with a conveniently pre-dropped block of stone by a new aspirant. That, or employ a more esoteric technique. At least one, a deadfall trap, required the ability to predict more than a second ahead of time in order to avoid becoming trapped in a dead end. In the absence of actual wars to fight in, the Uchiha had put in a lot of effort into these, and they had occasionally chuckled at the prospect of a Senju, which really meant someone without the Sharingan in their minds, attempting to infiltrate the place and failing horribly. Privately, Sasuke felt they hadn't fully considered the implications of the Hiraishin, but that was beside the point. He eventually emerged into the central chamber of the hideout, though to an observer not in the Sharingan's time-distorting grip, it would have seemed like a very short time given the circumstances. A spacious room with a throne at one end, that Itachi was sitting in. "Brother," he said politely. Itachi replied, "Sasuke, how are you doing?" "Well, brother," he said, slightly uneasy. "I'm relieved." For a brief moment, they exchanged glances, carving the image into their Sharingan. Whatever happened, they both knew it would be one of their last chances to see each other. Itachi blinked slowly, and when he opened his eyes, he was serious. "Is the applicant of true Uchiha blood, a Sharingan bearer and a clan child?" "I am," Sasuke replied, standing in for who, in ideal circumstances, would be his sponsor. "Has he received ninja training, taken a life, and been willing to bleed for his comrades?" "I have." Have his eyes awoken, improved, and grown to see the truth, the future, and the workings of another's mind in combat? "They did." "Then test the applicant, and if successful, award him the title of Ninja of the Uchiha clan." Itachi finished the formula and stood. Sasuke was already on high alert. In written records, the tests were non-specific, except that they tested every aspect of being a shinobi, but a layer of illusion crumbled, revealing Itachi 10 feet to the right. A simple trick, barely even an illusion by Sharingan standards, but fatally effective against most ninja. As one would expect from his brother, Sasuke created his own illusion, a subtle electrical phenomenon, and projected it through a lightning senbon. If it became stuck, it would change the relative speeds of nerve impulses throughout the body. He'd used it once before, and the result had impressed him. It wasn't immediately obvious, but his opponent had missed a clearly reflexive move 20 seconds later with fatal consequences. Of course, it didn't work on Itachi, who easily spotted it and shattered it like glass. That wasn't the point at all. The point was to demonstrate imagination. That particular illusion had looked almost like a lightning ninjutsu, which was what it halfway was, and that demonstrated his ingenuity to his assessor. When he'd infiltrated Itachi's illusion and made it appear as if he'd broken it with a sealed dispel, the Sharingan illusion had been something entirely different. It meant that he could. The illusion he'd ridden shattered completely. Itachi clapped slowly. "Nice work, brother. I almost missed that. I assume the intent was for you to build in your own displacement." "Yes, 1 millimeter per second in a jump, and correcting projectile trajectories. Eventually, I'd be able to slip completely out of your line of sight and use a large jutsu." "Useful, but because the Manjikayo is of a higher order than the standard Sharingan, it grants greater control over illusions cast with it." Tsukayomi. Before the final word, Sasuke averted his gaze, but a shuriken flew over his head at the speed of a striking snake and reflected Itachi's eyes, allowing them to make contact with his own. Everything went black. The realm of Tsukayomi, an example of the kind of powers a Manjikayo Sharingan possesses. "Sasuke, are you prepared to fight an illusion of this magnitude?" "I'm not sure if Madara possesses something equivalent, but given his ability to influence Biju, I would assume so." He's not Madara, Sasuke said, confident that Tsukuyomi took place entirely within his own mind and was unreachable to anyone else. We checked Naruto's summon scroll. The last signature before his is a formally binding fake of Madara's. We're as worried as you. Sasuke stretched his neck in the bonds as his brother reacted in shock. In fact, while we're not certain, we believe his name, Tobai, holds a clue. I recognize his alias, Itachi said, rubbing his eyes. What does it matter? Sakura figured it out. The conventional forms of the tailed beast's titles are Ikabai, Nibai, and so on. But there's more than one type of number. So Tobai means 10 tails if you use kun numerals, and we fought the brain of the 10 tails a few weeks ago. It was the zero-tailed leech. Do you think the 10 tails mind survived? It's certainly possible, and Itachi sighed. It would explain his ultimate goal. I've always wondered why he wanted to unite the beasts, since the return of the 10 tails would essentially be the apocalypse. But if he is the mind in truth, then it makes sense. He raised a hand. I completely understand, you're unsure, but we have to work with this assumption, especially if Madara is no longer alive. It's chilling, Sasuke said, and I speak as someone who's sparred against a Jinchuriki who was holding back, in two-tailed mode, and been on the front lines of a duel between Jinchuriki and Biju. Though I have to admit, some of that uneasy feeling stems from the fact that Naruto will be dead or nearly so if Tobai succeeds. And a little of the rest stems from the fact that he appears to have a good chance of being the Messiah. Do we even have that concept? Itachi inquired. I recognize it, but I mistook it for something foreign. Do you think Nagi has some of the right qualities? Sasuke pondered. But Tsukuyomi, the ultimate illusion, has infiltrated my mind. I've got it covered. For a split second, lightning danced around his hand before the world shattered. Both brothers collapsed in spasms a split second after Itachi initiated the Tsukuyomi. Itachi was the first to stand, but he retched, allowing Sasuke to clamber unsteadily to his feet. What in the world did you just do, Sasuke? He coughed. I induced an epileptic fit in myself, Sasuke replied, blinking quickly in an attempt to recover. That is probably the most stupid thing you have ever done, foolish brother. Didn't it work? You were inside my head, so when it went wrong, it got you as well. Risky, foolish, and inexplicably effective. This is what happens when you live in an unsightly manner. No, if you live in an unsightly manner, I will arrest you, Sasuke responded. Military, police, and everything. And your commander, Headache, is still out there. I'm not yet at his level. Itachi cocked his head slightly, regained his poise, and unleashed a barrage of shuriken. Sasuke countered with his own. This was a set piece, as well as a Uchiha trick that came in handy with surprising regularity, especially since the Uchiha's teammates could sneak around the side of the big flashy duel. Sasuke conceded, half a dozen of his shuriken flying straight at Itachi instead of the approaching weapons, forcing Itachi to cut off his own barrage to deal with them, giving Sasuke a chance to throw another few along that path. Itachi forked his own attack sequence, and Sasuke copied him, and within a minute there were sparking shuriken collisions all the way across the 30-meter gap between them. When both of them ran out of shuriken, Itachi bowed briefly to Sasuke. Good trick, but what else could you have done? Chidori shuriken. I've got a few shuriken in reserve that I electroplated with chakra reactive metal, and if I infuse them as lightly as possible, they might have gone unnoticed. They'd destroy many of your shuriken for a few of my own, giving me an advantage in ammunition. A useful piece of gear. Pass. The two brothers exchanged a few more glances before leaping. Fights between sharing and wielders were strange affairs, based on chance rather than certainty. When the battle was one of illusion, the duelists could appear motionless and unable to perceive their surroundings, almost as if they were not fighting at all, regardless of how desperate their struggle was. When the battle was ninjutsu, spectacular, difficult to control. Unstable moves that relied heavily on chakra control were mixed with absurdly simple little attacks that had been refined to the point where they were performed with fewer seals than normal, denying the sharing and the opportunity to copy. And in the realm of taijutsu, or even more so in a mixed battle, the real sparring took place a second or so later. Given their opponents, both combatants are narrowing the field of possible next seconds of the battle to their best choice. To an observer, the battle may have appeared fairly ordinary for high-paced ninja combat. But there was an unnatural fluidity in the Uchiha's motions, a sense of no energy wasted, no muscle overextended or underextended even at the phenomenal speeds of ninja battle. However, if the observer had their own sharingen, They would witness a mental battle of wits that dwarfed the actual maneuvers. Sasuke's mind considered using a phoenix web with a quartet of wire-guided kunai, then saw Itachi's plans shifting to take that into account and use it against him, causing him to abandon that and switch to a lightning illusion to induce flash blindness. Itachi responded. Sasuke changed his plans yet again. The Sharingan could see about a second into the future and slowed things down by a factor of 4 for its wielder. When that was combined with the incredibly fast reactions of a ninja, Sasuke and Itachi had iterated their attack sequences between 20 and 30 times by the time they were finally put into place. And this was happening at every turn of the battle. There was a reason why fights between Sharingan wielders were so rare when the clan was still intact. When the battle was over, it usually caused quite a migraine. When one of Sasuke's knife hand blows hit home, Itachi dissolved into crows and reappeared over by the throne. Impressive, but a Uchiha must be the fan to the flames, and he must be familiar with fire. Both brothers inhaled, flipping through seals while performing their preferred high-power fire techniques. They both arrived at the tiger seal at the same time, and a grand fireball collided with a fire dragon. Sasuke purposefully chose the more complex, difficult-to-control move. He'd gotten to know it well while attempting to build a lightning version, which had so far eluded him. The two attacks collided with a thud, instantly raising the temperature in the room significantly. With more fire chakra, Sasuke kept the dragon's body going, encouraging the dragon's jaws to expand and swallow the fireball Itachi had produced. Any minute now, Itachi couldn't stand it when the fire got too close. Amaterasu, this is what it means to master fire, Sasuke. The black flames generated so much heat that it felt like stepping from a cold winter night into hot springs. Sasuke immediately felt sweat pop, and it began to burn away at his fire. However, unlike a regular flame, the heat level did not continue to rise. Sasuke let go of his fire dragon and raised his left arm, the palm of which began to glow a bright yellow. He studied Amaterasu carefully in the time he had as his fire technique unraveled. Interesting. It was extremely hot, but it only spread through direct contact, presumably for convenience. The entire room would have turned to vapor if it was truly as hot as the sun's fire. No, it was doing something completely unexpected. It was consuming itself like a snake devouring its own tail. And it was also consuming what it was on. No, it was going deeper. It felt more real than regular fire. In a nutshell, it was on a slightly higher level. Just like the black chakra that powered it, like Sakura's golden dance of aspects and Naruto's altered chakra states. It was fire as much as it was a concept. Then the seal on his palm triggered, sucking the entire conflagration into it and successfully containing it. Itachi stood motionless. What is a fire containment seal? Yes, I hypothesized that if Amaterasu were a more pure concept of fire, it would be affected by seals in a similar or even greater way. But I have a use for this. Sasuke raised his palm to the sky. Kai, Amaterasu raged once more, and the roof blew up. Log thrown precisely. Sakura's eyes blinked. Even Naruto thought that one was strange. Can you tell me if you think you're running out of ideas? As a ballistic shark flew at them, he asked, what gave you the clue? He threw a wind racing gun at it, and what landed on them was a finely divided piscine predator. An ink griffon pounced out of the sky like a stoop, disintegrating into nothing as Samehada intersected it. Sakura looked around frantically, only to notice the massive column of black fire. And all the evaporation from Kasama's artificial lake was getting a head start on the storm clouds Sasuke would require. Have we tried making 100 clones, jumping at him, replacing him with boulders, and repeating? No, go ahead. Around Sasuke's hand, lightning chirped. I've always been more at home with the storm than the fire. Brother, in the bingo books, I'm the Thunderhawk. This is what I use for your Amaterasu. Lightning danced its way up to the clouds. That's Guren. As the bomb exploded, Sasuke drew the Raijin and charged. That wouldn't have killed him. Itachi, not so much. He is not his older brother. And, indeed, when he could see through the dust, Itachi appeared in materialized chakra armor resembling the storm god. Susanoo, the last of my 3 Mangekyo powers, and the most potent. Itachi was now sweating from the exertion, and Susanoo had a damaged helmet. I must congratulate you, I would be dead without this absolute defense. As he ran, Sasuke brought the Raijin in and rammed it against the interposed Yata mirror. I'm sorry, Sasuke, but the Yata is impenetrable. It's the conceptual form of a mirror reflecting attacks without loss. The electric blade sizzled on the surface of the mirror before Sasuke spun it around to block Itachi's Seiknagi. One legend's sake evaporated on the lightning of another, but neither made any progress. Their abilities were equal. There is no such thing as an absolute defense, brother, Sasuke quietly stated. A wall can crumble, a shield can rust, and a concept can vanish. I'm still a child, even now. More importantly, a mirror reflects, but an object stronger than the mirror will break it rather than bounce off. Sasuke jumped backwards, raising the Raijin for a brief moment. The entire storm cell discharged into it in a single strike, making the sound of all the cloth in the universe tearing at the same time. It hummed dangerously, became hot, and grew far larger than normal. As sparks flew off it, the younger Uchiha gritted his teeth, struggling to keep control. Then, oblivious to the danger, he swung it back almost to his neck and delivered a stupid, amateurish, heroic blow. Enough power to wipe out a small village hit the Yata mirror, rebounded, and collided with itself coming the other way. The explosion completed the job that the rest of the battle had begun, leveling the Uchiha hideout. Itachi coughed as he staggered forward through the rubble. His brother was struggling to stand in front of him. When I was despairing, Sasuke, after killing the clan, all those years, I thought of you. You, my little, baby, brilliant, strong brother. You are my light, Sasuke. Never forget it. You are the new light of the Uchiha clan. Sasuke was finally able to stand and confront his brother. I'm sorry it came to this. Sasuke's eyes welled up with tears. However, I have to kill you. I've been planning it for years. Just make it quick. Sasuke's hand shot out to his right, sparking. Attracted by the pulsed electric currents, the Raijin flew into his hands. The blade had been shattered, leaving only a stub. Sasuke switched it off before carefully placing it over Itachi's heart. Itachi made no attempt to stop him. He struggled to say, I am glad. The Uchiha clan will not perish with me. Sasuke reactivated the sword and sobbed like he hadn't since he was 8 years old. Like a heartbroken child, Naruto quickly replenished his Sage Chakra by throwing a pair of Rasen Shuriken, one as a shadow for the other. He detonated the second as soon as the first hit Samehada. Will you be successful? No, Sakura said. That sword's too damn big. He hid in the blast shadow. A purely physical attack might suffice, but by the looks of it, you'd need a non-chakra fueled attack powerful enough to shatter steel. Another ink bird disintegrated on the sword, and Sai landed next to them. We should get Sasuke and leave because Kasama won't be able to tell when we've left for the next few minutes. Huh? Naruto inquired. I saw that Sasuke's fight is over, and as for the other matter, I've been experimenting with poisons in my ink. It took a while to find one that would work on someone with the features and constitution of a shark, but I eventually did. He'll be paranoid that we'll attack again until it wears off, which will be soon enough that I really think we should get going. Sakura shook her head. Okay, you go, we'll use the summon network. I will, Sai said, and his bird took off on a crown-hopping adventure through the forest. Sasuke, he shifted his gaze, tears streaking his cheeks and forming a whorled pattern in his eyes. Naruto, I'm sorry, Sasuke, but we must return to Konoha. The last Uchiha sighed and took out a fine silk sealing scroll. It took only a moment to place his brother inside, and Naruto then performed the seals to summon Kin. He and all the Konoha ninja vanished back to their training grounds a split second after the big fox appeared. Kakashi placed his hand on Sasuke's shoulder, who flinched away but then stopped. Was this how it felt for you, sensei? For once, the elder ninja shook his head, completely serious. No, mine was different. I'd made a stupid mistake, and Abido had to pay for it. I can't imagine how you must be feeling. It will go away. No, it won't. Ninja don't forget their sorrows, they simply learn to live with them. The pain will never go away completely, but time will dull the edge. After a moment, Sasuke stepped away again, face composed. I'd like to go to the Naka shrine, and then I'm thinking about hiring Sakura if I'm going to take Itachi's eyes. He can have mine when he's cremated. Do you want to do it right now? At any rate, let him go to the fire as he was in life, Sasuke said, his voice slightly trembling. And this will prevent anyone from attempting to use the body. I understand. After your Chunin exams, that's become a legitimate concern. It also raises the possibility of having to fight some Akatsuki members again. It's a shame we didn't destroy Sasori's body because we didn't know where it was, but Hiden and Kakuzu aren't coming back. Sasuke took a seat in front of the tablet. Sharingan, as is customary, it explained the powers of the eye and hinted at what was to come. He concentrated with all his might on the moment he killed Itachi. Even as the tablet unraveled a little more, his eyes twitched and he memorized the movement. Limited free. Oh, this is the part about achieving the eternal, which is irrelevant. Ah, here we go. He took a closer look. There were 3 of dozens of passages that could be read. The ultimate warrior is he of the name Tadakatsu, right-eyed, who emerges unscathed from 100 battlefields. Let Masamune, the lightning-eyed dragon, wield his blades with 6 thoughts of one mind. Amaterasu was a fiery goddess. This could be very beneficial. Mitsunari strikes with the speed of his thought. With 2 eyes clear to see, said the third. Unless, of course, Uchiha sharing and accelerated their minds but not their bodies. He was going to win a lot of fights if this turned out to increase his body's speed by the same factor. He then winced, of course, once he got used to having much less planning time for each movement. Are you okay? Sakura inquired, running a final healing chakra pass over Sasuke's face. Yes, the pain has subsided, as has the slight sting of my Mangekyo, and it appears that transferring Itachi's eyes to my own has healed their damage. That's good to know, Sakura said, shuddering at the thought of Itachi's eyes. When their sharing and deactivated in death, they were so clouded she couldn't believe it. She recalled what Sasuke had said. That's my brother, no one else could fight that well while barely seeing. She helped him up, shaking it off. Are you going to check the tablet again to see what else it says? In a while. For now, I think I'll just meditate. Think about Itachi's life. She nodded and exited the room, which was one of the downstairs rooms in Sasuke's house in the Uchiha district. And so, the third Hokage concluded, ended the life of Uchiha Itachi, a man who was reviled as a traitor for nearly half his life, and among the most tragic and loyal shinobi I have ever had the privilege and pain of watching as he grew. And now, at the request of the last member of his clan, to which I have chosen to accede, he will be treated not as the missing ninja. The audience was deafeningly quiet. Itachi's funeral was held in public to spread the word about the true cause of the Uchiha massacre, and, more importantly, to limit Tobai's maneuvering room. If everyone knew he was a murderous, duplicitous individual, his ability to convince others would be limited. A ninja's life is often filled with pain and loss, but it takes a strong man to face that pain and still do good. The Hokage bowed his head for a moment before looking up. That concludes my remarks, thank you for your time. Naruto entered the training grounds to find Sasuke holding a kunai in his hand. Don't do it, Sasuke. You have so much to look forward to. Naruto received a deadpan look from the Uchiha. One of his eyes lit up. I'm not about to commit suicide, Ninwit. I'm testing one of my Mangekyo abilities. Keep an eye on me. With a whipcord motion, he brought the kunai down, and it bounced off his hand. Actually that's kind of cool, Naruto said, inspecting the skin, which was unmarked. What kind of power is that? Tadakatsu, I believe it grants invulnerability. Would you like me to try something? Sasuke stood there nervously watching Naruto spin up a Rasengan. Wait, what are you doing? Don't be concerned. Simply press the tip of your thumb against it or something with the jutsu up. He agreed. Gently pressing on the Rasengan caused it to indent, and then burst. Wow, it appears that your body's space-time is slightly displaced from the real world. Did you feel anything? Yes, ghost pain. Same as with the kunai. Sasuke blinked, and when his eye opened again, it was black. But that's a very chakra-intensive power, in the same way that sustaining a Chidori while discharging it into something is. I think I'll have to pulse it as attacks hit. It's still a good safety net. Yes, Sasuke said, looking at Naruto. Did you mention anything about space-time? Yeah, I've been studying it because I believe it's how my father was so fast. He accelerated his nervous system relative to the rest of his body, and I want to know how he did things, even if I can't easily replicate them. Naruto clenched his fists. What about the remaining two? I've already tried Mitsunari, and it's very strange, as if I'm not using the Sharingan, but everyone else is slowed down. Sasuke drew the Raijin. We'll see what happens. I believe I have enough chakra. He closed his eyes for a moment before opening them again. His left eye flashed with the pattern of his and Itachi's Mangekyo combined. The Raijin ignited, and its glow changed to a deep, azure blue. The pupil dilated. So that's how it goes. What? The power, Masamune, it deepens my understanding of. Lightning. That last word was sung rather than spoken. It was undeniably celestial. Sasuke removed a coin from his pocket and tossed it in the air. He willed the blue lightning to envelop it as it fell, and bang! A tree on the other side of the practice field collapsed. The Uchiha cracked a grin. Oh, yes, I really like this. Naruto shifted his gaze between the sword and the tree. What exactly was it? Railgun Justu creates movement by using electric current and magnetism. Ah, Naruto, I have a mission for you, Sarutobi said, handing Naruto a scroll. Ooh, capturing a missing nin. Neat, Akatsuki. No, he's not a minor Akatsuki member as far as we know. Alright, then why us? Who asked for this? To demonstrate his understanding, the third pushed an open letter across his desk. It was labeled with the date and the phrase "do not open until," in the handwriting of the third. I had no idea the origin of this letter until now, so I made a duplicate of it along with a second letter, which you are to give to the other person you meet on this mission. There is time inconsistency involved. Time travel, future or... No, it has to be in our past if you want me to deliver a letter you've already received. Correct. A portion of the letter mentions that a memory jutsu will be performed on those in the past, wiping their memories of the events to avoid damage. Doesn't that seem like an information paradox? Sarutobai's eyes blinked. How did you come across that term? About once a month, Sakura rants about the Sharingan. And I've been reading up on time-space techniques because they seem to be what ninja like Dad and Tobai use all the time. How prudent, but I digress. You must lead your team to Aran in the Land of Wind, where Mukade intends to use it to travel to the past. Sarutobai sighed. Of course, he'll succeed, but try to make his success as terminal to him as possible. Guys, this is getting weird. Sasuke turned to face Sakura. Elaborate. Whenever I activate my true sight, I see these vast glowing streams of chakra beneath the ground, which seem to meet somewhere near where we're going. I believe they're ley lines or something. Wouldn't surprise me, muttered Naruto. Is this the crazy luck theory all over again? No, a big city in the desert is either there for defensive purposes, like Suna, or it's there because something important is there. The others looked up. That makes perfect sense. Of course, it's possible that the important thing is a trade route or something. But given how the place is a ruin, you'd think it's something that no longer applies. Yeah, it's a relatively new ruin, isn't it? Less than 20 years ago, the team dashed into the central structure, catching up to Mukade just as he reached his objective. Sasuke threw a pair of kunai at the elderly ninja, who caught them with chakra strings. You will not be able to stop me. I will rule the world. He ducked as a railgun-launched coin nearly ripped his torso out, then unsealed a half-dozen large puppets to act as saboteurs as he worked on the seal to the dragon line's node under Aran. Ooh, interesting, muttered Naruto as wind racing and carved a puppet into an amusing shape. That appears to be one of Dad's special kunai there. By the way, Sasuke, don't blow his head off until he completes this bit. 3 more hypersonic coins shattered the ground around Mukade. I knew that before I shot the first one I checked. Naruto, my Sharingan pretty much showed the world going crazy if I connected. Yeah, time is a little mutable, but not by much. Oh, do you think it would be easier to use kunai or shuriken with that railgun thing? It's probably getting a little pricey. Naruto's puppet finally blew up when a cache of explosive tags detonated in a chain reaction. Damn, I have to start all over again. At long last, exclaimed Mukade. Wisdom Queen Peacock. Naruto responded, Peacock what? In terms of technique names, that's kind of. The team vanished after a burst of broken time. Sai blinked and lowered his gaze. Oh, that's a shame. It looks like I won't get to see what Danzo looked like when he was younger. He shrugged, turning back to the crow who had been speaking to him. What were you saying? Mukade triumphantly laughed. Finally, I will. 5 lines of plasma connected with him at the same time, causing him to explode violently. Sasuke blinked away his manjikayo, his hand sheathed in crackling blue lightning. Okay, we're in the past, what now? Now, we have to find Dad and his team, Naruto reflected. I believe there will be a young Kakashi as well as a couple of older ninja on it. How do you intend to find them? Sakura inquired. Actually, I think we can just wait here. There's no Hiraishin kunai in the source yet, so he has to have come in here to seal it. But if it was sealed in the future but isn't now, wait, where did the future him come from? If he jumped back into his old body and Sasuke just blew it up? This whole time thing is hurting my head. Under Aran, Minato Namikaze and his team stormed into the chamber. Mukade, you will not. Where is he? Minato stammered through his prepared speech as he encountered 3 unfamiliar figures, 2 of whom appeared familiar in different ways. Minato, Naruto said casually, trying hard to maintain a neutral expression. Don't worry, it's from the 3rd Hokage. Time travel. And do you know any short-term memory erasal techniques? Yes. Good, Naruto said, his face relaxed. Hi, Dad. Wow, Minato finally said. It's strange to hear that my son, will be, well, you. You're everything I could hope for, but at the same time I half want to change who I'm dating because Kushina clearly left her mark on your genetics. Naruto burst out laughing. Don't worry. I think it worked out fairly well. Oh, that reminds me. He quickly grabbed a scroll and began writing on it. Minato took a look around. What are you up to? Well, I think it'd be a good idea to at least hint at something. You need to figure out how to break a contract connection by attacking the summoner. Okay, what will that accomplish? Ultimately, probably save the world. But that's true of a lot of things, Naruto concluded, handing the cryptic note to his father. He then turned around and looked behind him. Okay, Sakura apparently wants to talk to you. Thank you, Naruto. Sakura exclaimed joyfully. How did you discover your true name? Minato's eyes blinked. Are you aware of that? Sakura responded by showing Naruto the Hurricane kunai he had given her months before. I deciphered the seals on this with my celestial heritage, and it only works for those with the true name Arashi. The syllables hung in the air like music. But I think if you found a group of people who each had a part of that true name in their conceptual structure, they might be able to do it collaboratively. I hadn't thought of that, Minato admitted. However, it sounds like a good idea to investigate. Why do you ask? You see, I'm developing my soul area, and it's all in Celestial. I was wondering if you did it the same way. No, sorry, Minato said, shrugging. Just a lot of seal work until I figured out the nature of my own being and discovered the root seal of the entire meta array. Sakura just gaped for a moment. That's the most difficult thing I've ever heard of. Are you sure you don't speak Celestial? It's beginning to sound like it. Minato confirmed, nope, I'm just really into sealing. You're telling me you achieved nirvana with a brush and paper when you were a teenager. She shook her head. That's just incredible. No wonder you're the fourth. Who am I? Oops, spoilers, Sakura grumbled. Ignore that part. So you're a Uchiha? Kakashi inquired. I am, Sasuke said. And the Sharingan has a special power if you say the word Kamui. Try it. Kakashi did so, and then collapsed. Hey, Sasuke, that was a little cruel, Naruto observed. It'll be the last time I get him with it, and he won't remember. Minato stabbed the dragon line node with one of his special kunai. Right, I make it about 30 seconds before the time distortion fades, and I think space-time should heal up around here now. I've set a timed seal on the dragon line so they'll pull you back in time to attack the idiot at the appropriate time, as well as an illusion seal for the fake Mucade. The three ninjas of the future nodded and then vanished. Minato promptly fired off a short-term amnesia jutsu. What happened to Mucade? Chose inquired, his brow furrowed. I believe the evidence points to our target attempting to use the dragon lines and exploding, Shibai droned. Well, that was fun, Naruto said. It's good to talk to Dad again. Sai descended to meet them. I see you've returned, and I'm happy to report that I now have a summoning contract, so I'm not the odd one out. Not for that reason, at any rate, Sakura grumbled. So, who do you have? The large crow landed next to him and spun a 1-foot-long metal tube. The red bell has rung, and the Seika are prepared. Are you my brother's old summons? Sasuke asked, recognizing them. Yes, we are. They see themselves as a whole, both individually and collectively, Sai stated. Because this does not contradict my personal philosophy, the connection is obvious. Ah, good to see you're back, said Sarutobi. Does anything deviate from the timeline? It turns out that the Mucade we were sent after was an illusion to give us a reason to go back in the first place. Everything else is in one piece. Time travel appears to be one of the universe's mysteries, though your father was certainly beginning to unravel it. Naruto shook his head. We're ninja, we don't have to make sense, we walk on water because it's easier than learning to swim. Indeed, and it appears that nothing urgent presents itself for the time being. Danzo made a panicked motion and tossed a report to the Hokage. A ninja escaped through the window behind him. And it appears I was mistaken. There's a mission for you in Water Country, near the last sighting of the Six Tails container. Try to check in on him if you have the opportunity. Got it. Worst evil plan ever, muttered Naruto. He almost managed to make an explosion the size of an entire village. Sakura observed. And a nature chakra converter isn't to be sniffed at. No, it's not that. He had to be right in the middle of the explosion to use the technique. What? It's a good thing Utakata was there, Sai remarked lightly. I can't imagine things going so smoothly without his one-of-a-kind and extremely useful bubble jutsu. Or the gigantic slug in his gut, muttered Naruto. Shapeshifting is cool, but a completely unique element would be even better. Oh, Naruto, stop bellyaching. Sakura poked him. You have about 8 times as much chakra as he does. A valid point. Sasuke had been frowning and staring into the distance. Who in Konoha has a summon of a gigantic bird with the Rinnegan, Sai, Naruto, Sakura. I'm not sure. Is the punchline Katsuyu? Sakura's head whipped around to face Naruto. Pardon? Well, Tsunade is a big name in more ways than one. And she's a Senju, which is part of the bloodline associated with the Rinnegan, so since Katsuyu can. An explosion rang out in their ears. The Raijin appeared in Sasuke's hand after it sparked. Konoha has been attacked. That makes more sense. We shouldn't have spent that week on the way back practicing massive impact techniques, Naruto pondered, his hands forming seals to summon Ikamaru. How about taking a look around Konoha for some intel? For a brief moment, the silvery fox's form became hazy. Done. Several attackers, one of whom is summoning all kinds of crazy monsters, are attempting to locate you. Sai gave a flat smile. That is quite impressive. You weren't gone long enough to overhear conversations, so you must have deduced everything from still images. No, I just bounced around and picked up the incoming wavefronts of a few conversations. It's a pretty simple trick. Yeah, for someone who views the sound barrier as something to avoid on the way past it. Sakura grumbled. Is there anything else? They've all got unusual hair. Ikamaru shrugged. An unusual thing to see on a quadruped. This is unusual for humans, and several of them have orange. Pain, Naruto said, his eyes already yellow slits. He's looking for Millie. The team launched into a sprint toward Konoha. Plan? Sasuke inquired. Naruto smirked. First and foremost, I'll get some clones up and evacuate the village. Pain is high S rank, and apart from us, Kakashi and the Sannin are the only ones with the firepower to match him. And for us, it's only because we've been preparing specifically for the Akatsuki for months. Then evacuate the village for fighting room, Sai suggested lightly. Because I am less skilled than the rest of you, I will split up, launch harassment attacks, and contact Lord Danzo, who I understand has a most peculiar summon. Anything that might help, Naruto said, nodding. See if you can figure out how he's doing everything, Sakura. Naruto multiplied himself into thousands and sent them to evacuate Konoha after Sasuke launched a shuriken railgun burst at a giant centipede that had reared too high. Sakura's gaze darted from one location to the next. Something strange was going on. She frowned as she launched a bolt of wind-powered flame at a group of origami creations. Is that Conan? Indeed. Paper strips flew together to form the Kunoichi's face. I'm impressed. Not many people would recognize my distinct ninjutsu, which is a paper clone transformed and cloned again. A swarm transformation. I had no idea those were possible for mortals. The sheer information overload. Sakura then grinned. I'm sure it helps your complexion, though I see your skin is a little papery. Enough, Conan stated flatly. You are not our goal. Leave in live. No way, Sakura exclaimed, lighting Rasengan on fire. A paper storage scroll flew at her, unleashing a torrent of water. She switched aspects with a thought and drew the water into a big ball water Rasengan, obliterating much of Conan's nearby paper. A second face appeared further away. How did you do it? Your element changed from fire to water, which is impossible. I am the god's heirloom. My method is insight, and mystery is my path. I've seen and comprehended everything. There has been both fire and water, leap from the ground to the air. Danced at Sakura frowned, and her voice lost its strange timbre as she exited Celestial. Damn, almost got it there. Anyway, Naruto is one of my friends, so go crumple. Conan began to speak again, but fire engulfed and destroyed her proxy head. Sakura wrapped herself in a wind-fire shroud and went in search of more of the missing S-class ninja's paper. Sasuke slammed into a building hard enough to pierce it. Yahiko's body shifted away from him, and a hail of Chidori shuriken pierced him, puncturing holes and cutting through some of his bones. Sasuke crept back out of the rubble, wincing as his Mangekyo reverted to the regular Sharingan. Tadakatsu had kept him alive, but it had taken a toll on his chakra supply. Naruto appeared beside him. The village within the walls is clear, and the boss is wearing down Pain's ones with the big fox summons. Understood, Sasuke said, dodging a fire technique from the Pain he was facing. With a frown, he activated his Mangekyo once more. Amaterasu. Diva Path Pain flickered out of the way, launching a wide area water technique before disappearing in another flicker. Damn, a screech filled the air, and one of the massive summons, a hippo, it appeared, flew into the air, exploding and on fire. Sasuke and Naruto exchanged a glance. Rasen Shuriken. Yeah, and some Chunin threw in a fire technique just as the attack hit. Nice work, whoever you were. Kiba burst out laughing. I actually accomplished something. Akamaru barked and rolled his eyes. Look, the boss is about to go sage again, so I'm about to vanish to give him a recharge, the clone explained. Understood, Sasuke said, spinning the Raijin before making a decision and summoning Hayabusa. I'm going to cover top with Sai. Both of them looked up as crows were being slaughtered overhead, occasionally mobbing and destroying paper clones. The clone of Naruto nodded. If you get a railgun shot, don't mess around. And keep track of everything, you're the best person for that. I don't want to be surprised if a third Akatsuki member is here. The clone finally vanished, and 2 seconds later, a massive explosion erupted near Konoha's center. Sasuke grimaced. Oh no, I hope he doesn't have to pay the repair bills. Naruto pulsed a big ball Rasengan in one hand, tearing the Asura Path's projectiles apart, while 2 of his clones tossed in a Rasen Shuriken to try to kill the close assault specialist Path. Another jumped in the way and absorbed the attack, followed by a pair of wind Rasengan. Damn, that's annoying. A chakra drainer with enough capacity to keep up with me. Why do I always run into them? he grumbled, ducking beneath a plausible dynamic entry from the human path. The air pulsed, and gravity suddenly multiplied 100-fold. No, Joe and Ha vanished before being crushed, and Naruto collapsed to the floor, his sage mode saving him. A boom echoed over the village, and the gravity field vanished. Naruto jumped back up and checked. His clones were all gone, smashed by the field. That meant he was back to full sage, but it was also a bit of a problem if Pain could do that whenever he wanted. A 4-foot-wide flaming ball of chakra destroyed one of the paths, and all summons vanished. Many thanks, Sakura. She did not respond. To be fair, she was probably under some serious delusions if the Rinnegan hadn't spotted her. For the umpteenth time, Naruto was thankful that his team was regularly pitted against armies of his clones. The way these Pains were reacting reminded him of how his clones could share memories, and their familiarity with it gave him an advantage. As railgun shots rained down on him, a rhino appeared in front of him and promptly exploded. Naruto blinked and 50 clones appeared. One of them went to find Sakura and ask her what the hell was going on. Using the theory that the paths had to be hiding somewhere, the remaining 49 and him began wreaking even more havoc. Resurrection? You're kidding, Sakura said, her eyes darting around as she dissected a web of genjutsu. Sasuke could simply ignore it, and Naruto was currently operating on Sage Chakra, but she could see what it was and what it was designed to cover. Speaking of which, she tossed 3 flash-tagged kunai into the air, and the path at the center of the resulting triangle took a Kirin to the head. That appears to be the one launching gravity attacks. With his incapacity, the illusion net stopped moving as quickly as it had before, and Sai expressed his gratitude by censoring the seals on some of Conan's paper with an ink dragon. Sakura vanished once more, pausing only to scan the area with true sight. That was the end of it. Wind blades sprouted from Naruto's hand, and a summon fell apart. When his sage mode ran out of time, he mentally shrugged before pulling on 7 chakra tails. Pain stood motionless as Naruto's chakra cloak formed. You're a fool, Akatsuki has experienced defeating Jinchuriki. Tails burst from the ground, wrapping around the human path with a grinding roar. They threw him high into the air after hefting him for a fraction of a second. Naruto smiled as he hid behind the red-orange yokai. 7 tail clones were fantastic. Huh, Sasuke thought to himself as he examined the flying path with his Sharingan. What is this one's trick? I don't think it has one, Sai said calmly as he flew alongside. This one was at the back of the line when the powers were distributed. Are we going to kill it anyway? I'd like to accept the honor, Sai said, motioning for a pair of crows to fly in sync with the path's trajectory. They dispersed a split second later, and the human path violently exploded. It appears that the second rule of the crow summons is to cause things to blow up, Sai pondered. Naruto's clones encircled him in a web of tails, lashing out and blocking attacks. Naruto checked his chakra levels again after one of them was caught by the Naraka path, and lost a tail before escaping. And he was burning through it quickly. For the 3rd time, railgun fire smashed the Naraka path. At the very least, that one was vulnerable to physical assault. Then all the paths Naruto could see froze and collapsed. Hey, Sasuke, was that you? He exclaimed, still wearing his chakra cloak. No, Sasuke replied. I believe Sakura discovered something. Neat. That's the dumbest plan I've ever heard. And I'm on the same team as Naruto, Sakura stated flatly. Except for wars over the weapon itself, Nagato insisted from inside his sparking, dented control system. Sure, if everyone was perfectly rational, Sakura snorted, but if the weapon's use was too terrible to contemplate, then armies would attack the bearer of the weapon because he'd never use it, and if he did, then that's another use of the weapon. Not to mention that you're all taking orders from someone who, based on the mind of the 10-tailed beast, is either undead or an eldritch abomination. Nagato's eyes blinked. Pardon, Madara Uchiha died at the Valley of the End. We have his old summon contract to prove it, and somehow his name's both been removed via death, and is still on it. We're still looking into that one. You're essentially assuming that everyone else in Akatsuki is being perfectly tricked by you into doing what you want, except Tobai, who doesn't have an agenda. Frankly, based on his public persona, I'd willingly believe. Naruto made his way through the wall. Oh, sorry, I thought it was wood, but it was paper. Okay, that's Nagato, right. He reminds me of someone. Do you mean the younger Nagato we saw in Jiraiya's historical flashback illusion? Sakura questioned skeptically. No, I mean they both remind me of Uzumaki clan members, like mom and stuff. Sakura examined the incredibly thin ninja. I don't see it. Please name another person with red hair. Dara, she offered. Tricky and a well-made point, but I'm suspicious of him anyway, and that's a different shade of red. Teuya, the flute girl, and suspicious of her as well. but again, shades of red. As entertaining as it is, Nagato mused, what's the point? Oh, to the best of my knowledge, your attack did not kill anyone, so I'm going for a redemption. You know, since Tsunade Senju is part of our village, we could probably heal that body trauma. I would never go so low as to associate with the Sannin who abandoned me. Well, except for Orochimaru when he was a member of Akatsuki, Sakura stated casually. Nagato and Konan exchanged sidelong glances. Alright, that's the end of my excuses, Nagato said. However, I'm still puzzled as to why they never checked on me. Your enemy was Hanzo the Salamander, who was basically the most powerful ninja of the time, and by the time he got confirmation you were alive, it was because you'd turned your resistance movement into a terrorist organization aiming to kill his godson. When put that way, I have to admit it makes sense, Nagato admitted. Okay, I guess it's time to see Jiraiya and Tsunade again. How about it, Tsunade? Sakura inquired as she watched the legendary medic scan Nagato. The good news is that none of the damage is permanent. The bad news is that I'll have to put you on 3 months of bed rest and another 9 months of physiotherapy before you're allowed to leave the hospital. Nagato grimaced. Konan extended his hand. Would he be able to move around for short periods of time with an origami exoskeleton? Perhaps, but I'll have to test it first. Hey, Naruto, I need another expendable test dummy. What, again? Naruto asked. I thought you finished all of your experiments last week. That was last week. There's something new. Alright, hold on. Both Konan and Nagato blinked. Usable test dummy. Naruto regenerates. He's previously grown back an arm. Oh, okay, Nagato mumbled. And I thought Akatsuki was a fantastic group of misfits. Sakura shook her head. I've become somewhat desensitized. Sai threw something out the window. It looks like a get well card, Konan said as he slowly opened it. I'm sorry for the war, it was a big mistake. I hope you can ninja again soon, Danzo. Nagato accepted the card and placed it on his bedside table. When he saw the other people's puzzled expressions, he shrugged painfully. At least he was polite enough to apologize.
So this was it for today. I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.